Baker. Yeah, we're all getting used to that, aren't we? Calling this meeting back to order, this hearing. Representative Baker, if you don't have any further comments, we can get back to member questions.
That would be my preference, Mr. Chair. I'll be happy to take questions from members.
Okay, thank you, Representative Baker. P. Johnson, I believe you're on the list next.
Thank you, Chair Mecklen, Chair Baker. Reading this bill, I wasn't here for the last 2 years. I'm new to this, and the bill before us is really quite simple. It literally changes the number from a 6 to a 7, delaying this by a year. But one thing that I'm really realizing rapidly here is that sometimes the simplest language in these bills is the most loaded. So I want to thank, a lot of them aren't here, but I want to thank the testifiers for sharing their stories and their concerns, and it does help bring some of this into light. And one of the things that I picked up on from a lot of these testifiers and the employers and HR and things like that is the value of a collective bargaining agreement and a union contract. As somebody who both benefits from those contracts and negotiates those, I see employers talk about how those are used to protect workers in this situation so they have the leave to take care of their family members. But it's also rare that those benefits don't come under attack every single time we try to negotiate them. We're constantly forced to defend them, both in negotiations and out. So that's one of my big concerns is many of these testifiers talk not about how this delay would be used to prepare and implement this, this plan, but more they talked about their concerns. They picked apart parts they don't like and problems with it. So my question is how do we take this at face value that it's written solely to delay to allow for this thing to be implemented and not continue to attempt to undermine it and weaken it and continue to chop it apart where it won't have its continued benefit?
Representative Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Johnson, that's a great question, and I think it's extremely appropriate for you to ask those kind of questions because you didn't kind of live through the last at least couple of years where it was really evident that this very big program, which is, again, really recognizing the need for family support, for medical support, and if the employers, which is going to be a major part of this, really minimum is going to be 50% of this, has to also kind of see where it's going to work, how they're going to pay for it, how they're going to kind of bake it in. So you're right, the slightest words can change a whole direction of things. A shall to a may, you're going to see that a lot around here. The delay in this bill is meant to get it right before it leaves, because what we can do is keep working with this kind of a bill when it's sitting on the House floor. We can add amendments, we can change things on the way. The one thing that I have shared very openly with Lead Pinto is that my ability to keep working this is to actually try to find better ways, more ways, to make the bill even better and how it actually gets the other side, the part of business that also has to be viable. Or Representative Johnson, we're not going to have jobs for them to come back to. They have to at least say, I can see where this is going to work. So a delay is giving us a pause to work on this more. I am not convinced DEED is ready. I'm not convinced the fiscal notes were done properly. I'm not convinced that the language is right because there's still too many questions coming in. They have not convinced me, certainly, that they're ready to go. We need to have conversations in this committee about where is the IT system at right now? Is the governor getting updates, regular updates? Are we getting regular updates? When are we going to know the system has been actually really tested properly by people in the IT world that know what that even looks like? And it's not me. Until we see those kind of things, Rep. Johnson, I'm just using this as sort of a, we're going to make sure we get it right before it goes out the door. Thank you for the question.
Representative Johnson, do you have a follow-up?
I do. So the follow-up I have is one of the things that we've encountered. I am fortunate to have a benefit that is comparable or a little better than what we're talking about here. And one of the things that that we have seen is continued pressure on the city of Duluth because so many other folks don't have that benefit. So when somebody has to take leave, it is always the city employee who has that benefit, in essence supplementing those employers that don't provide a benefit that is robust. So how do we, my question to Chair Baker, I guess, is how do we stop that continued burden on those employers that do currently have it, and where only one side of that family is eligible to take that leave.
Representative Baker?
Mr. Chair, I have to maybe could you, I'm not sure I follow the questioning. I'm
Sure.
sorry.
Representative Johnson?
So, Chair Baker, with my employer has a strong leave provision. And if something happened to one of my kids, I would be the one that would take leave. So it would be the city of Duluth that would be paying all the overtime and all the backfill to cover me, paying all those benefits, where my spouse works for an employer that does not have a plan that is nearly so robust. So all of that continued pressure to the current employers that offer those benefits, are you concerned at all about those employers continuing to bear the full brunt of the leave for the individuals in these families?
Thank you.
Representative Baker?
Mr. Chair, thank you for the clarity. I think that that's something in the system right now that, again, a lot of collective bargaining agreements are set up for just those good, robust programs that you're fortunate to have. A lot of people don't have that, and there's, for many reasons, they don't have it. To have this fairness thing, I think, come up is what we're trying to get down to, is to what is fair, but what is also affordable to everybody that has to participate. Any members in either a public union, maybe such as yourself, that they've negotiated over years with this kind of a robust PTO program, the question now becomes, that I'm hearing from others, is, well, I already got the program. I don't know that I want to pay a tax for a program that I'm already getting. And that'd be a question for you and your colleagues that fight fires and are doing those kind of things. Those are the questions that we want to make sure we get it right. Do you want to have a double program and pay for more, or are you happy with what you have? We're never going to get it right because there's so many thousands of businesses in the state of Minnesota. Everyone is unique. Some are seasonal, some are not. And some are public, some are not. Some are small, some are brand new, some are massive. What we're trying to get to is, what is that fairness look like? And another reason that you're bringing up is why I think we just need to make sure we get it right, so that we look at the other side to get this, so that your spouse, for example, has something that they can use that is actually maybe right fitted. It may not be the same, but it should be something, but we're trying to get to something. But I appreciate the question. Yeah,
Representative Johnson?
thank you.
Next on the list would be Representative Kozlowski.
Thank you, Chair, and Representative Baker for bringing this bill and for the discussion that we're having today. I also want to thank all the testifiers who shared, including, it's great to see Duluthians on the board today. You know, in reflecting on the work that we did to bring this bill and pass it after decades of Minnesotans organizing for the benefit of paid family medical leave, I was struck by something I heard in testimony earlier, that, you know, it's a need to protect public interest and promote economic growth. And as somebody who has spent a number of years in background in business administration, I also believe that, you know, health is wealth. And that is, everything we do is economic development, including the health and wellness of our employees, of our communities. And a lot of research has gone in to show the benefits of paid family medical leave, especially as we heard in testimony that we look at our workforce shortages. You know, we just had our St. Louis County Days at the Capitol, and workforce development and the workforce crisis is a real issue facing us. And we've heard over and over from our employers and childcare sector that a big part of it is that if we could keep, you know, women and birthing people in the workplace, and that paid family medical leave leads to 20% less leaving the workforce. I also am here on the workforce committee and in this work because I really believe that Minnesota is a place where everybody should have a affordable place to call home, that we should have ample job opportunities, and we know that while not reflected here, I think our job is also connect the dots to the economic system and systems that we have in housing. And when we talk to people who are facing homelessness or facing housing instability and keeping people in their homes, having a job that can pay the rent and pay your mortgage, and keeping that, but medical debt that could be proactively resolved through paid family medical leave shows that 13% of single-parent families and 25% of those in dual incomes are filing for bankruptcy, which is causing people to lose their jobs, causing them to lose their homes. And so having this benefit not only makes sure that we're taking care of our workforce, but that we're keeping people in their homes. I mean, I want to make sure that we're really clear of why we're doing this and how that actually goes to support the overall economic development in our community, in our state. And so to the question, I'm curious, as we've heard from many different groups coming before us today, is what feedback, Representative, have you taken from workers and labor groups in talking with state agencies that would necessitate us having a delay? And then what are we to say to Minnesotans who trusted us, who are making plans to utilize these benefits that would necessitate their waiting?
Yeah.
Representative Baker.
Mr. Chair and Representative Kozlowski, thank you for the question. It's a very good one. I think that what I've heard the last 2 years is, yeah, there is a real need to have an understanding that we can do something better in Minnesota to try to find a way to give very important benefits that fit the employer, to best fit that employer to make sure that they can operate this, whether it's by choice, whether it's by right-sizing it. But what I've learned in this world that I live in Economics 101, is not everybody gets paid $50 an hour. Not everybody has the ability to do those kinds of things in the industries that they are choosing to work in. Not everybody has the ability to work in a small employer and have that flexibility and get to know the owner-manager. And in large employers, they can offer a lot of different things for different reasons because they have maybe more global, revenues and things. I think there's just so many slices to your question because these stories are heartbreaking. They really are. As an employer myself, I want to make sure they all have that time at home. But I will tell you, if we don't get it right, to get them out of poverty, to get them to the housing that you're talking about, they need to have a really good job. They need a good job with good benefits. We're talking about benefits. If we don't give them the good job before the benefits, we won't have anything to offer them, period. And my fear is the last couple of years, the majority did not listen to that side of things very well at all. I've heard that numerous times. And I think my marching orders in my mind, in my heart, is that of all the things that I've heard around the state last couple of years, oh my God, we got to get this right. And so my plea to my DFL colleagues is to make sure that we talk about how do we make this so that the employers who are minimum 50% of this benefit and whatever size this is, we got to make sure that they can have some buy-in too, because they have not been heard in the last 2 years. That's a really, really big deal. So I'm just trying to find this balance to get this to work. Because again, once it's out, it's going to be a lot harder to change. I want to make sure that we hit that right sweet spot.
Representative Kozlowski.
Yeah, thanks, Chair and Representative Baker. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I appreciate that we want to get things right. And also, I think about the years and years that Minnesotans have waited for this benefit. And we've heard from small businesses today, or like I said, in my own backyard, who said, we're ready. DEED is ready. We're on track. And I think about the Minnesotans who don't have time. I'm a real big James Baldwin fan, and that echoes real true in my life. My brother didn't have time. My mom didn't have time to wait around for these benefits. I think about myself, and I appreciate that Rep. Greenman was very personal in sharing his story. Myself, as a victim survivor, it's MMIR week. I appreciate that Violence Free Minnesota was here. I'm really fortunate that I worked in a workplace as somebody where there was multiple instances of sexual violence, and I had a job that gave me 2 weeks off of pay, and then another 2 weeks off of pay later on in the year to go through ceremony for healing. My counterparts who had also experienced violence, they weren't so lucky. And also then birthed a baby at the end of the year and really could have used these benefits and not have to go into debt, not have to take on the load of credit to be able to necessitate healing. You know, we heard survivors need the time to go to medical appointments, to go to counseling. And then also we're talking about the impact onto employees' productivity and retaining them. And so that, to me, my question at the heart of it is, we've heard from teachers, we've heard from small businesses, we've heard from folks with medical challenges. And what is going to change in the next 10 months, or that we haven't already done since it passed in 2023, that the state agencies are saying, we're ready, we're on track for implementation. Businesses, small businesses are ready, Minnesotans are ready. What's going to change?
Representative Baker?
I think what's going to change is we need to make sure that the employees and the employers, you got to look at the employers too. You can't ignore the employer. They need to be understanding what is coming at them right now. ESST came out in January of 2024. And do you know, 2023? Not sure. When did it, January 24? Yes. There's many of them that are just finding out about that today. And for different reasons, they don't know anything about it. I'm not convinced. Deed knows how to communicate with employees to this level, to the employers to this level, to make sure that they're ready. I haven't seen a presentation. I haven't heard anything from the department. Maybe they are. We haven't heard it yet. I guess I'm going to just demand that if we can be convinced that this is ready to roll out, there's a lot more information that I need today to make sure that we're ready, because just because you say we're ready doesn't mean that the whole group, and this is what the big part of this whole legislative process is. It's slow, it's methodical. We have to do a lot of conversations, but this is the largest, business mandate that's put forward for some good reasons. Again, I'm not here to talk about repealing. I don't think this is watering anything down. It's providing something that we can get to that everybody and more people can get behind. The more people that get behind this, the more successful this will be. So I hope that, again, my DFL colleagues will be open to continuing this conversation about what can we do to make sure that we're all ready for this. Today, I'm not convinced. I'm just one, but I hope we get there. Thank you.
Representative Kozlowski, anything else? Nope. Next, we have Representative Hussein.
Thank you, Chair Baker and members. This is very personal to me, this bill. About 13 years ago, my mom was struggling and dying cancer in bed. And we did not have this program. I did not have any opportunity. I was the only one who was making a bread for the family. I had to take her all the way to Mayo Clinic for treatment and chemotherapy and bring her back in St. Paul, back and forth. I could not continue. I didn't have no job opportunity, no protections, so I lost for my mom and my job. So imagine how many people are waiting for this program to kind of utilize it for those 2.5 weeks or whatever opportunity that we can spend our loved ones that we care about, that we want to make sure that we spend for the last moment in their life. I did not have that opportunity. I had to juggle back work and spending time with my mom, who was really sick by the time. And that's the time that she really, really, really needed me to be there. And when this came forward last year, I was excited. I spoke in front of the committees and supported 100%. Delaying this will cost harmful for many Minnesotans, including peoples that wanted to spend a time with their loved ones. And that's why I wanted to share this very emotional and tough to me to come and forward in front of these committees. We have many people like me struggling right now that are waiting for in front of the line just to make sure that they can get this opportunity that we passed a year ago, delaying this. And we seen so many testimonies who came forward in front of us and share. We could do better. The European, the other countries that is very poor, even in Africa, are giving people opportunity to spend with their loved one when they're dying. We're living in a great nation. We're living in the state of Minnesota. It's better. We could do better. Stop delaying this, and we need to get along and move forward and do what's right for our people. Chair Baker, I have a question that I would love to ask you. How will this delay impact businesses, workers, families who have been expecting this use pay family leave starting 2026 or even sooner? What would you say to those people?
Representative Baker.
Chair.
And I have two more follow-up questions.
Thank you, thank you. I would say how we answer that is, we can't let something out if it's not ready to go. We made that mistake in different IT programs in Minnesota. Representative Hussein, again, we're going to keep hearing about the Minlars disaster, but it went out sooner than it was ready. Even then, it was delayed several years before they wanted to launch it out. This is as complex, as large, because it affects every single employer in the state of Minnesota, like Minlars affected every single vehicle and every single registration, every single sale. Now, we can say, well, this is people and not automobile, but it's the same kind of a system. If the system breaks down and we have family planning to go on family leave starting in January, February of 26, and we aren't ready, we shouldn't go out then, because they're going to go out on work and we're not going to give them, they're not going to have any money. That's a serious problem. So I just want to say that we have to tell them that we've got to get it right. I can't, I mean, again, my thoughts are we should make sure that we all agree that it's ready to go. And if we don't all agree that today, my point today is elections had a change in the direction of what we could ask in these questions and in these hearings. I want to make sure we get that other half talked about more clearly, so when it does go out, we get it right. And that's what I just want to keep harping on. It's got to work, and I'm not convinced it'll work today. So to those people, I'm sorry, it might be delayed. It may not be, but it might be, because we don't want to make it harder for you if it goes out and it's a disaster. I don't want to be sitting here with families that are screaming at us in next January or February, March, I haven't been paid. What's going on? And that's what was happening before, when IT systems just lock everything up. I've seen it too many times.
Representative Hussein.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. I appreciate it for relating to IT, but this is a life and death. These people could have an opportunity to spend with their loved ones, and we are delaying. Who are they going to challenge later on and regret the rest of their life? It's us as the legislators. That's why we should not be delaying, because I had that experience in the past. I could spend more time if this kind of program availability is here 13 years ago, which wasn't. What feedback have you received from stakeholders, including employees, labor's group, and state agencies about this delay? Have you consulted with DEED and other agencies? Because a lot of people have came testified and they're saying, it's enough. We can't be having more delay. We need to move forward.
Representative Baker.
Mr. Chair, what I've heard the last, again, it could be last couple of years, but even more recently, I think is what you're talking about. Again, we talked about the fiscal note a lot in our Tuesday hearing. I still don't have fiscal notes that I asked for a year ago. I don't know what certain things are going to cost if we try to find exceptions, or if we found some ways of trying to modify the program a little bit, I was ignored. The business community as a whole was ignored in the last 2 years. School districts are coming to us saying, now that we see this, we're not sure this is right for us, because what we heard in testimony before we officially were called into action is that school districts, for example, are saying, we don't know where this money is going to come from because it comes from our taxes. And they don't have the ability to just raise taxes like county boards do. So they're worried this is going to hurt students and they're going to hurt teachers. So I think we've got to make sure that we get all of those voices here. When this thing was 2 years ago, I had a number of different unions come to my office, laborers, and I asked them about this idea because I kind of knew where it was going to go. I will tell you, at least 6 to 8 union groups, when I would ask them about, what do you think about this? Every single one of those groups that met with me said, we didn't ask for this. This isn't our collective bargaining plan. This wasn't part of what we're doing. That's what they said initially. I'm not saying that's their voices today. I'm saying, though, when it first came out, like in Representative Johnson's case, they have some very good, robust programs now going on. So they had been negotiating those over many, many years. They're asking us today, if you listen to your school districts, that's exactly what they're going to tell you. So I want to make sure that we're asking the right questions to our own districts. That's who we represent. So I beg you, I beg all of us to talk to those people. Are we ready? Do you know how you're going to pay for this? And again, just going back to the IT is not people. You're right. But we aren't going to be handwriting out checks from the state of Minnesota when their system isn't functioning. And so it comes down to the reality of we have to find a system that can work and support our families. We're going to be taking $1.5 billion in tax collections from Minnesotans starting in '26, $1.5 billion, roughly half from employees and half from employers. We need to make sure that that system is robustly set up. I haven't seen any evidence that that's going to happen. Now, I'm looking forward to our meeting in Ways and Means next week. I think we're going to have more talking about the fiscal note as well, not about this bill, but I think we're going to talk about more about the fiscal note too there. So, Representative Hussain, I hope that it's deeper than caring. We care. I care. I just don't want to hurt people because we didn't have it right. Because I've seen it here before. We have messed it up before.
Representative Hussain.
Thank you for your answer, but I feel like we haven't addressed yet for the concern. How do we address our constituents, your constituents, who's emailing to me and saying we are 100% sure this bill has been passed and we've been waiting for now we can plan to have a baby, or now we can have, our sick ones, we can take care of it, we can, get away opportunities. How do we address for those people, our constituents and the people that advocated for this and supported for 100% for this bill in the past?
Representative Baker.
Mr. Chair and Representative Hussain, I think you got to tell them what I'm telling them. We're working really hard together to getting this to work out. Stand by. We're working really hard to make sure this is right. That's what I would tell your constituent. That's what I'm telling my constituents too, that are ready to have a baby. We need to get this right. That's what I would suggest you tell them.
And
Representative Hussain.
one last question. Thank you. Have you ever consult or reach out to the bill author for the bill that has been passed?
Representative Baker.
Representative Richardson, in the past, we talked about many times. Well, I shouldn't say many times. She didn't take a lot of meetings with people that were sort of on my side of the aisle wanting to talk about challenges that we were facing. Representative Frazier took on the bill, and he and I have met a few different times on this. But last year was a pass it, get it done. It doesn't matter how it's going to work. I had members on your side say, we'll fix it as it goes. I don't work that way. At least when I carry a bill, I want to make sure it's right. When my friend Liz Olson and I passed the opioid bill, there was so much work and so many details, and we got it right on the front end. I feel like this is my next big bipartisan, very large bill that we've got to get right, or it's not going to work. So I need support on both sides, but we have to make sure we talk openly. And I'm looking for my meetings with Representative Frazier, Representative Pinto, and others, because it's going to take that to make sure that we get back here with maybe some other ideas. I am not stopping with this, on this idea, on this bill with just this. We have a lot more discussions to do. So thank you for the questioning.
Representative Hussein.
I just want to thank you, and this is very personal to me, and there's so many people are struggling out there. I don't want them to go through what I have went through, and that's the reason that I ask all those questions, and I appreciate it. We could have, like, if you had a concern or something, we could have go back and, we'll work with the bill author instead of delaying for another 2 years, so you're behind. That would, I want to thank you.
Next on the list is Representative Berg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a lot of thoughts, but I'm going to start with, well, first of all, to my colleague, Representative Hussein, thank you for sharing that about your mom. And I don't see any of our testifiers really from this morning left in the room, but those were some heart-wrenching stories. And I think sometimes when we're here and we're battling it out over minutia and details and language, all of that's important, but we tend to forget that legislation is about people. And we heard those stories today. One of the stories I'd like to share is I was door knocking this summer, and I knocked on the door, and a single mom answered the door, and we were chatting for a little bit. She wasn't very politically involved, and apparently I'd never knocked her door before, so it was a first for both of us. And I was sharing some things that we had done last session, just to kind of bring her up to speed. And the look on her face when I talked about paid family medical leave, she just lit up. And she shared with me that she's a single mom. I think she had 3 children. And she has one child that has either severe asthma or some other breathing complications. And she had to rush that child to the hospital one day. And she had to stay in the hospital with that child. And then she had to care for the child after the hospital stay. And then she lost her job. So now she's a single mom with mounting medical debt, trying to figure out how to feed, house, clothe her children, keep them in school, keep everything going, all of the balls in the air after she lost her job to care for her child. And think about that sentence, that we are asking people to choose between their child or their job, which helps them care for their child. That is a sentence that in any language, in any country in this world should never have to be said. We don't choose between our children and the ability to financially care for our children and their families. And I am pleased to say that she rose up out of that, and she was in school. I think she was completing her master's when I spoke with her, but the idea that she could have had a chance to care for her child and keep her job literally never occurred to her. And so hearing that that program was out there, and I made sure I told her it's not implemented yet, because this child is going to have complications for life. So this is going to arise again. It's just when does it arise? And at that next time that it arises, is she covered, right? And so I've never worked with you before. I'm enjoying the committee thus far. I do have to say I'm suspect that our colleagues on your side of the aisle want to delay this, because we know at every single turn in all of the discussions, whether it was the author was Representative Richardson or whether it was Representative Frazier, you found absolutely every possible way to drain the humanity out of this issue and block it at every turn. And so I apologize if I'm a little suspect that this isn't just the first step to getting rid of this altogether. And so I guess my question for you is, what are some of the specific logistical or financial obstacles to this, that you have specifically made a list of these are the issues that renders this need to delay this?
Members, just a friendly reminder, we're not impugning motives of other members, but Representative Baker.
I guess what I'm trying to get to, Representative Berg, is to make sure that all the voices are heard as we start, for me, at a super high level. I just want to make sure that Minnesota can compete on an economic level. Around our state, they are kicking our butts when it comes to job growth. With economic vitality is better around us than it is in Minnesota. And that shouldn't be that way. I'm a competitive guy. I have a big heart for my employees. If you asked any one of my employees, they will tell you that. But I'm telling you and I hope that our relationship will grow and the trust will be there, and I hope that all happens. Because when I saw you on the committee, I'm like, all right, here we got a spunky one. Here this is gonna work out great. Because I have watched you and you do a wonderful job. But I'm saying this because the voices that were here this morning too, that were concerned about the bill, I also think we're representing a lot of people that really care about their employees. Economically, we want to make sure that we can compete. This is a mandate that will be put on businesses either by 50% or 100%. It's their choice, whatever. But if they do this, they have to compete. And that's the bottom line of how they actually pay all of their benefits, not just this one, but some of them, again, as I have said in this committee many times, I just don't want the state of Minnesota writing my handbook because my employees can go somewhere else if I can't give them the benefits that they need. Now, I am not asking for a repeal. I'm asking for a pause. And I am committed to working on this bill, this issue, and I hope that this session, and I hope that this committee will show the rest of all of our colleagues in the Minnesota House how we get things done, how we can actually come up with some really good ideas that still touch everybody in a positive way that's more positive today than they had yesterday. So I really hope that we can find that energy, that collaborative manner. But I have to say, we have to still be competitive. That we don't have a choice. I want to make sure our businesses are not put at a big disadvantage. And again, it's all part of the mix. It's all part of this balance. So I hope that some of that made some sense.
Representative Berg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that answer. Certainly, I apologize. I don't want to impugn motives of anybody on the committee. I think it's fairly factual to say that this was not a bill that was supported by the other side of the aisle. However, I do agree with you on being collaborative. In fact, I just signed on to one of your bills, Representative Schultz. I know that is shocking because I'm your favorite, but I did right before session. So I appreciate your answer, I really do. And I do believe you want this to be rolled out and to get it right for both the employers and the employees. And if we have that in our hearts, I think we can do this. Just to clarify, though, there aren't any actual examples that you can point to that are impediments that you've heard from employers or agencies at this point.
Well,
Representative Baker.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I would say what I've heard is from many, many businesses, first of all, my little business can't afford this because they will have people out of the workforce longer than normal. People are having babies today. They're out of the workforce having babies today and other medical things too, but they're worried as a small business. They are barely covering their retail shops, whatever business that they're in. They literally don't know that they can take another 10% of those hours away for an extended period of time. I've heard from school districts that are screaming for help because they don't know what to do, because this is a big mandate, unfunded, and they really feel good about what they've given their employees to date. So I want to make sure we talk about those sectors out there. It's not a one-size-fits-all. If there's a theme that I can say to this whole bill, Representative Berg, this one-size-fits-all is the biggest problem with what you passed last year. A one-size-fits-all in Minnesota for this large of a program should have some reasonable exceptions for different groups, for different industries. I want to talk about a seasonal adjustment, maybe again, a business that's open for 150 to 180 days. Those other states do that. Most states do that. I think this is the only state in the country that is offering a plan that goes all the way down to every single employer with one employee. Others have exempted 5 or 10. So I've done a lot of work around the country to see what is working around the country. And I'm bringing it here to say we have the most progressive plan, but what I heard from the DFL was, but everybody deserves that benefit. I agree. I think that makes sense. We have to find a way to do it, but it doesn't have to be a one-size-fits-all.
Representative Berg.
Thanks.
Very good. Next on the list is Representative Greenman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Baker. I know how engaged you've been in this conversation in the last couple of years, and just to sort of talk a little bit about the timeline, because I've heard you say, in the last 2 years that employers weren't listened to, businesses weren't listened to, and just to note that people have been working on this bill for a long, long time, not just the last 2 years, and the fact that it only passed in 2023 is a sign, I think, that the legislature was listening to those opponents, particularly the biggest opponents, for a long time. And so I don't think it's fair to say that either the issues raised or the objections, the experiences of those employers who oppose it, because we also heard from employers who support it, weren't included. And so just to say that, because I think it's important, this did not come out of nowhere. I think a testifier said that. We passed it in 2023. It's now 2025. It's not set to go into effect for another 10 months. And you talked a little bit about the benefits to best fit the employer, but I think what we're trying to figure out is what do Minnesotans need? And that includes employers, but it absolutely, I think, includes and centers families and communities. And I know you know that. And, 70, I think the last poll I saw, but it's been pretty consistent, I think, in the last decade or two, like 77% of employees in 2024 said that they wanted this benefit. 79% of small businesses wanted a federal program. It'd be great if we had a federal program. I think in many cases here in Minnesota, what we're doing is making up for that lack of leadership at the federal level and sort of trying to catch up with the 12 or 13 other states that are already doing it. It's not lost on me as we listen to the testifiers that the two real voices that came out were the workers and the small businesses. And they're both, and I think what we heard, and this is the sort of jurisdiction of this committee, both workers and the small businesses that are getting squeezed in an economy that feels very tilted to the biggest companies, the monopolies, whether it's the supply chain, whether it's the Walmarts and the Amazons. And that is a problem here too, because as we think about the percentage of the people who are employed by small businesses, it used to be, I pulled the numbers, 43% in 1978, now 32%, maybe declining. I think I've heard that state, right? We have a lot of people who work for big businesses now. And one of the reasons we heard is because they can offer things like paid family medical leave that small businesses can't offer. So from a competitive perspective, and I know we share the value of we should and need to be doing more for our small businesses, our local businesses, the folks in our community, right, that have 10, 20, 30 employees. And I think we oftentimes have a trickle-down business agenda, which a lot goes to the top and not very much goes to the bottom when we think about small businesses. And so in this moment, I think it's important to ask that question, but in the spirit of sort of a collaborative what problem we're trying to solve. It seems to me that, and I'm wondering if you have any ideas, we have 10 months. this was passed in 2023. There was Representative Frazier and bill was in 2024. We have this whole session and we have 10 months. And so are there things that as we think about those small businesses, particularly the ones we heard from, who are saying we want it to go into effect, are there other things we could be doing to support their small businesses and the issues they're raising that we could be doing in the next 10 months?
Mr. Chair.
Representative Baker.
Thank you for the question. I think there are things we can do, but here's what I see our timeline is left. We have literally 2 months left here to do any changes because we burned up a month. We're in our first full week of hearings, but we're in the middle of February. Happy Valentine's week, everybody. So I don't feel we have the time to fix anything. If we get out of here on time, we aren't fixing anything. Because you heard Deed come back from all these summer hearings and summer listening sessions. They heard numerous times from communities that one size fits all. I'm really, really concerned about that. Can you come up with anything else? And you heard them in testimony say, they're coming back here to offer nothing for improvements to this bill, nothing. Also, I want to address the point that you made, Representative Greenman, about it's a very popular program. It is. But if you ask those people, do they know they're going to be paying for this? Most of them do not, because when I ask them that, they don't have a clue, because headlines look like a paid family medical plan. It's a beautiful word. It's beautiful. But it is not, when you also then tell them that there's a cost to this, then a lot of them will say, oh, well, what do you mean? I'm not saying that they're not willing to pay for something, but just understand when you ask them in a poll, do they really understand what's all coming? We need to ask that question fairly to all of us, because I don't know that they do that at this point. So many businesses are hearing the headlines that are worried about this one size fits all. On the same stretch, employees don't have a clue that there's going to be a payroll tax coming in 2026.
Representative Greenman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Baker. Again, I think, and having worked on some bills in this committee where a lot of, particularly from the biggest business associations, a lot of the concerns and questions are things that are asked over and over and over again, have been asked in, and sometimes there's just a disagreement. Right? And there's a disagreement in how it's supposed to work. And there was a policy decision that was made in 2023 and 2024. I think it's the policy decisions that the idea that it shouldn't matter what size of business you work in, whether you get a benefit or not. I mean, that's sort of the piece of, you can say one size fits all, but it also means that if you're a Minnesotan, you can go work at a business that has 4 employees and get the same benefit as if you go work at 3M or Medtronic. And I want that. I want people to go work in the local businesses in my community. I think when I think about and you talked a little bit about the 2024 election, but what I knocked on a lot of doors, and what I know I never heard was people want less support and they want it to take longer. And so at this point, people have been waiting. The 2026 implementation date was, I think, longer than most people who are working on the bill, most allies. I think it was a negotiated 1 year later. And now we're talking about delaying it again. And when I think about what people want and expect from us, right, it should be to get, to keep the timelines. And I think that, I think we'll probably hear from Deed. I hope we hear from Deed, because we talked a lot about Deed and this program, but actually haven't heard directly from Deed. But what I'm hearing from Deed is they are ready to implement. What I am hearing, what I'm interested in is if there are issues about supporting small businesses. We have, I think, $300 million a year in the R&D tax credit that goes to the biggest businesses, $110 million a year at this point that goes to, in the data center tax breaks, that goes to the biggest corporations. I would love to talk about, if we're talking about our struggling small businesses and being able to afford that payroll tax, that we talk about the businesses that are 10 and 20 in all of our districts that are getting squeezed. I would love to talk about how we support them and how we maybe redistribute up or redistribute down so that those small businesses, that to me is a conversation we can have in 2 months. Delaying it, and I think delaying what we heard, both people's expectations, also what I feel like the people expect right now, I just think is a bad idea. And so I'm looking forward to the conversations about how we can small businesses, but I'm going to vote no on this.
Thank you.
Next on the list is Representative Frazier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Baker, for allowing us to have this conversation. I think, one of the things I am kind of surprised, you and I have talked before, we talked last year when I picked this bill up, and I am kind of surprised that I didn't see a solution-oriented bill versus a delay bill, because I just expected that from you, because I do believe you are being sincere when you say you want to make this work. So I am surprised I didn't see that, but it's not too late. It is not too late. I know we're in February, but I still believe we have time to get something done. In fact, I've been talking to folks, some of the folks that work with and represent some of the people that testified in support of your delay bill. They believe that they can bring something to work something out to get this done. And I know you're talking to those same folks. But I just wanted to say I'm surprised that we didn't see that now as opposed to this delay bill, because the delay bill doesn't encourage me in terms of getting to a solution where we're going to put this in place. You heard folks testify that they're concerned that this delay tactic is only to actually destroy this program and never allow it to get off the ground. I hear that deeply. And I know that as we work toward passing this law, the reason we had to delay, the reason we didn't start sooner than this was because we were listening to those folks that were opponents of this. And I do just want to make sure that when we talk about not being heard and listened to isn't the same as agreeing on something. And because we didn't come to agreements on everything that's in the bill, it doesn't mean that those folks weren't heard. It doesn't mean there wasn't deliberate thought put into everything that they suggested to be in this bill. Because I was in some of those conversations, a lot of them last year, and I know there was. We looked at ways to change the bill based on what individuals thought, or what some of the corporations thought, or what some of the counties and the school districts thought. So I know those conversations were happening, and they were done in a thoughtful way. But again, just because we didn't come to agreement, it doesn't mean that they weren't heard. In fact, much of what I heard today was similar to what I've heard over the multiple years we took to get this bill passed. I didn't hear anything different that came from those organizations or the representatives of those organizations that talked. And that, to me, says that it's not that you don't understand this bill. It's not that you, it's what it is to me is that not that you don't understand the bill, but you just still don't like this. You don't like this law, and you don't want this law to go into effect. And I hope that as we work the next couple of months, that we actually have people come forward with actual real concerns that we can put into a bill to work on solutions, right? Right now, as this law stands, and I do want to call, Mr. Chair, I do want to call Deed up to allow them to speak, if that's possible.
Yeah, that would be fine. I'm sorry, who was your, oh, there you go.
Yeah. So I was going to say, I'll stop right there because I just want Deed to give a chance to speak, because we have talked a lot about Deed, but we haven't had the chance to have Deed come up and respond to a lot of this thing. And they have been in the room hearing to what was testified to, and I do want to give them the opportunity to speak.
If you can just state your name for the record and proceed.
Sure. Good evening, members. My name is Devin Bowdry, Government Relations Director at Deed. Our position is that we are ready to go January of 2026, and we have what we need.
Yeah. Thank you. Mr. Bowdry, can you just give us a kind of a recap or summary of the outreach that has been done up to now?
Mr. Chair, Representative Frazier, yeah, we have done quite a bit of outreach. First, back in 2023, 2024, starting with just initial meetings with some of the testifiers that you heard from this morning, the Chamber, NFIB, Hospitality, Mayo Clinic, just to start with employers. So our initial outreach right now is employer-focused. After that, we went into a rulemaking period, and during that open rulemaking period, we held 19 virtual listening sessions that had close to 1,000 individual attendees, and we received 600 written comments. So tons of feedback through that mechanism. Then we did the Greater Minnesota Roadshow in the summer and fall of 2024, and that was 18 engagement sessions with employers across the state in greater Minnesota. We had 1,300 employees, with the highest attendance being in Wilmer, Mr. Chair.
Ta-da!
And continuing to do that, and I know the Metro lawmakers are probably like, Greater Minnesota Road Show, you know, spring, we got something coming, stay tuned. We'll be doing a spring road show as well. We've worked with and collaborated with the various school employers, 343 employers that represent various school districts. And additionally, we've done, a number of virtual webinars. We did 2 in October of '24 that had 2,900 attendees. And we did one just yesterday, actually, which had 2,400 attendees as well. So that's kind of where we're starting. We have an engagement team, and they have just launched a live link where you can request that people come to your events, your festivals, your chambers to speak about paid leave and the latest updates. And we know we need to circle back to Greater Minnesota as well, because some of the information was new. There were questions that were unanswered, and we want to get to those questions. And additionally, we are working to leverage the teams with Indeed that have been there for a long time, that engage with employers on a frequent basis and have those long-standing relationships. And so working to leverage outreach as much as we can. And I guess lastly, the thing to expect for the summer is the community outreach grants that are part of paid leave. Those will start up in July. So that's nonprofits getting in the mix as well to help do outreach and engagement with various employer groups.
Representative Frazier.
Thank you, Mr. Baldry. That sounds pretty robust. I appreciate you sharing that information with us. You know, when you were in the room this morning when we were having testimony, and there's just a couple of things that stood out to me during one of the particular testimonies in regards to just how this program will work once it goes into effect. And one of the questions, and if you could just answer one of the questions was, there was someone that had some confusion around whether or not an individual could be in the process of receiving unemployment insurance and also simultaneously in the process of receiving paid leave. Could that happen?
Please proceed.
Mr. Chair, Representative Frazier, no. So in UI, and not to get too deep into the weeds of UI, but there is a requirement that you are ready to work, you are looking for suitable employment, whereas paid leave is doing just the opposite of that. You're telling us that you are sick or you're taking care of a sick family member, you cannot work. So that would go directly counter to UI, and you would be ineligible.
Representative Frazier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that answer, for clarifying that. One of the other questions, or seemed to be some vagueness around how the law works, was can an individual, when an individual once the individual qualifies and then Indeed determines qualification is there and they begin to make the payouts. Now, we know that the way this law works, it isn't the 100% of your wages. It is a percentage of your wages, and it will vary depending on what your wages are. Will that individual, when I heard in testimony was that then the employer would be required to pay the difference in those wages. The way the law is written, is that correct?
Mr. Boundary.
Mr. Chair, Representative Frazier, no. I believe an employer could elect, if they choose, to kind of top off and max out an employer's wage that they would otherwise get, but otherwise, no, they would not be paying additional.
That's what I.
Representative Frazier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for clarifying that. That's what I thought. So can you, and this has not, we have not requested this of Deed, and I think that's also something that surprises me too. Would Deed be willing to come back to this committee and do a total walkthrough of how this bill works, but also, if possible, do a demonstration around the IT pieces? Because there seems to be some concern based on our history with Menlards. And I would like to think that we've learned our lessons and we're better off now and we know to prepare for those things. But would Deed be willing to come back into this committee to do a presentation for folks so they can truly understand and see the process and where Deed is in that process with the IT part?
Mr. Boundary.
Mr. Chair, Representative Frazier, yeah, we could certainly come in and do that. We have a right now a presentation ready in anticipation that we'd be asked to do a fuller implementation update. I'm not entirely sure yet where we are as far as like demos and clicking around an IT system, but we have an IT vendor, one that is experienced, in their whole model is based around working with governments and helping to stand up systems like this. So we could get into that.
Representative Frazier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We'll be looking forward to that, for you to come back to do that. Thank you for your time.
Hang on. I'm going to ask him some questions too while you brought him up. So do you have any more?
No, go ahead.
Okay, just real question. Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I just want to, again.
Representative
I
Baker.
appreciate the department being here too, and we have an open dialogue with the department. So by not having them here, wasn't trying to circumvent the agency that's going to run the thing. We just have more time to do this in the next few weeks because I am going to be asking questions, and we need to understand our, again, and this is a question for Mr. Devon. My question is, have we hired a third party to come in and test the IT system? Do you have a third party, or are you just going with the person you've hired?
Devin.
Mr. Chair, Representative Baker, first off, yeah, I appreciate working together, and you've been very communicative, and we have a good relationship so far. And but no, I guess I am not sure yet about the third-party IT testing. During our roadshow, actually, though, we did get a lot of employers signing up to volunteer to be user testers, which we thought was a nice way to leverage those events. But I'd have to get back to you on third-party.
And
Representative
again,
Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sensitive to tonight's just longevity here. I don't want to go too long. But there are questions about how many businesses have really been in contact with the department. You've had these road shows, but how many registered businesses are in Minnesota?
Mr. Beaudry.
And to follow up, how many have we communicated with on this massive program?
Mr. Beaudry.
Mr. Chair, Representative Baker, how many registered businesses in Minnesota? I'm not sure. I'd have to check either with Secretary of State or one of our teams back at DEED, and how many have formally engaged with a paid leave, webinar or so on. I mean, I went into the kind of thousands that we have reached through these events that we've hosted, but how many then hear about it through other means, I'm not sure.
Representative Baker.
And just final, again, there's a lot of industries out there that are begging to make sure that you hear them as an industry too, like nursing homes. Hospitals are worried about the ratio complexities that they're going to have, and if they're folks that are out of work further and more are going to affect their patient care. I think there's just a lot more people, a lot more businesses that want to know around my industry, how does this work? So again, we will have further conversations down the road with the department, and we'll have a full-blown thing. We'll talk a lot more about IT down the road too, so that'll be very helpful. So thank you. Thank you for letting me do that.
Next on the list, we have Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chair Baker, and particularly thanks to Rep. Frazier for leading on this issue, and former Rep. Richardson. I hope that she's not taking her time to watch us tonight. But in case she is, I'm really grateful to her for her leadership on this. Mr. Chair,
Pinto, can I just say one thing? I forgot to kind of reply to one thing that Representative Frazier had, because you had said, why didn't you bring these other ideas to us before?
Yes.
And I did. I brought a paid family. It was a private version of a Min Family on the House floor. I was looking for versions of let's carve out 10 and under employees, 20 and under employees. I wanted to know what that was like. I had bills in the hopper that never saw the committee because the chair didn't take those on. I asked for hearings many times. I also asked for fiscal notes. As you heard earlier, I asked for fiscal notes because I wanted to know if I bring an idea to the table, is this workable? I never got a fiscal return from the department. So I do want to tell you, Representative Frazier, as the author of this, you have been much more accessible than the prior author. Thank you. I have been trying to give ideas into this for the last 2 years, and now I have a little better chance. I just wanted to follow up on that, so they will continue. And I'm sorry for that, Mr. Chair. Representative Pinto, thank you for that.
Mr. Chair, can I, Is it?
Yeah, please, yeah, of course.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I do know that you were trying in those efforts. I was speaking to this moment now that you have the gavel. You could have brought the bill with those particular things and concerns to get them heard. That's what I was referring to. But I do know you were working on those pieces. So I appreciate you saying that. And I do want to say, I know one of the things, and I'm going to just finish with this and I'll stop. But I mean, we've heard constantly that this is a one-size-fits-all bill, when in fact there are some things and there are some exceptions within the bill. Yeah, you can, thank you, Devin. There are some exceptions. I mean, you have, employers are allowed to substitute, if they have a plan that is better than, or that is the same or better than, they can be exempt from this program. That is allowable for everyone in the program. There are exemptions for seasonal employees. We had that come, that was one of the things that was taken in, right? There is exemptions for independent contractors, the self-employed folks. That is one of the things that is there. And small employers will pay a lower premium, and there are also grants as well to help those small employers out. So there are things within this thing, and I think we need to get away. There's more nuance than one size fits all, because there are exceptions that provided within the law, and those are absolutely there because of the conversations that were had throughout the process with stakeholders before this bill was passed. So I just want to make sure that it's on the record and clear, because I often don't hear, I've heard no one that testified against this bill talk about those exemptions and those things that were listed in the bill. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chair Baker. I've got some questions and comments, and then there'll be some motions we make, and I mentioned to Chair Baker in advance that would be happening. I'm going to start just with a question, Mr. Chair, Chair Baker, about something that you said in response to a question. I think it might have been Representative Hussein's question, but you had said, I think about the program with this bill, it might be delayed, it might not, was kind of what I heard you say. And it seemed like maybe that fit with some of the other things you've said since, but could you just explain what you meant by that? I was trying to understand that.
Representative Baker.
Well, Mr. Chair and Lead Pinto, I think what I want to do is, again, when you have committee hearings and you introduce bills, you bring bills or ideas to a, possibly making things better, making things cheaper, making things whatever. This bill today is saying, I just want to make sure that we have the ability to pause something if we don't all feel like this is ready to go. So what this might do is we might come to some really awakening, beautiful collaborations on something that we can get out the door in 26. But we've got to make sure that we get the business community to support something, the school districts to support this, because again, if any of us have talked to school districts, they are not, after the sort of the dust has settled after the 23-24 sessions, they are not sure how to implement this. Not from a want to give it, but they don't have the dollars to do it. So my point is, Representative Pinto, this is an idea that we want to make sure that when we get it to the floor, we can talk about more things. It's just one of our avenues that we may want to use, because if we don't feel it's ready to go, then we can say we've talked a lot about this delay, but we also have other ideas coming.
Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Chair Baker, I guess I'm a little confused. So are you saying then that this is something that that sort of, if the program, you feel, if the program is not ready to go January 1st, 2026, this could happen, that this delay could happen? I guess I'm confused. Like, are you talking about how there could be a potential further delay, or you're saying potentially this actually wouldn't end up being a good idea?
Representative Baker.
I think, Mr. Chair, what I want to make sure is that we all feel like they are ready with the IT, that they're all ready with the business answers that they've been trying to get to. There's a lot of businesses that are not getting clear answers for who's eligible and who's not. There's a lot of unanswered questions. So I want to make sure that this is our ability to slow the program, to pause it for a minute, to make sure that we get all those answered before it goes out the door.
Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Chair Baker. Chair Baker, you heard the stakes, and you heard the experiences, and may I say, adding to the words of my colleagues, how grateful I am for the just powerful words, powerful stories folks shared. And I saw your expressions as you were listening, and I know you, and know that, I know that your heart was moved in listening, as so many of ours. And these are folks saying, like, I need this now, right? And what your bill would do, if we vote yes, if that bill were to become law, is that it would cause people to wait for a year. And I would think you would agree that there should be a very high standard given the expectations, given the moral weight of those stories that we heard. So we should only delay this if there is if it's absolutely necessary. If there's absolute, and I'm an attorney thinking about evidence, if there's absolute evidence of doing so. And Mr. Chair, I'm just unclear. You talked about various things from businesses. What I mostly heard in the testimony today was concerns about paid family medical leave, about having it just not happen at all. I heard some vague concerns about implementation. The testimony we received from DEED, and it was Representative Frazier who brought them up, is that this program is in fact ready to go. If there's evidence that the program is not ready to go and you control the agenda, Mr. Chair, you could have a hearing where they could be questioned. You could prove that. And so I guess I'm just unclear that I don't see that proof has been met. And in recognition of those experiences that people shared with us, exactly how are we going to use those 365 days? What exactly is the promise that it won't become 366 or 700 days or 1,000 days? And I would say I don't think, Mr. Chair, that it can be a general response. I think we sort of need some time. People are desperate now. So if there was testimony saying that DEED has there's an IT system that is necessary, we explain why it's necessary, and it's not going to be online until May of 2026. Okay, that's concrete. Let's talk about that, right? I will tell you, I heard nothing anywhere in the same universe as that. So is there something you can share, Mr. Chair, that is concrete enough to respond to the pain that we heard from people and the desperation they feel?
Representative Baker.
Mr. Chair, Representative Pinto, the testimony is always moving to me. It is heartbreaking because there's some really desperate situations out there that sometimes, government programs just don't always just snap their fingers and it works. What I'm trying to fight for, as I've said earlier, it's the part of the program that wasn't heard, and that's the people that have to be required to provide a job. Without jobs, this doesn't work. You got to have a job in order to have this benefit. If we don't have employers in the state of Minnesota, and if they're pushed out of the state of Minnesota, my point is the economics of this. It has to pencil out. This is a very robust program. Should it be 12 weeks, 20 weeks, 80 weeks, whatever? I don't know where we came up with a number, but we have to make sure that whatever number that is, it has to stand up. It has to be supported by businesses that can, number one, provide a job for someone to have paid family, because if you don't have a job, you're not part of the program. So we've got to make sure that we don't forget about the business side of this equation to make sure that they also are robust enough and ready for this and communicated enough to this to be ready for this to launch on January of 2026, much better than we did with the ESST rollout for businesses in 2024. That has to be much improved. So my concern is the stories are real, but the businesses also have to be there financially to make sure that they're there when they have them employed in the first place and when they're ready to return. So that's what I'm fighting for, is the balance of this bill, the balance of this idea has to be examined and carefully crafted to make sure it works.
Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chair Baker. Do you have a plan to use the 365 days to meet the concerns that you've addressed? And if so, what is that plan?
Mr. Chair, I think my plan is to get through this hearing. We're going to move this bill off the floor, and then you're going to see probably some other ideas that we're going to be presenting that we're still working on. Quite frankly, there's a lot of things going on. I have now that I've learned after the last session, what does it look like? I didn't know how much this was going to affect school districts. I didn't know how much this was going to affect smaller businesses in the last 6, 8, 9, 10 months. I've learned a lot by listening to people that went to the DEED meetings in the summer. So I've learned a lot in the last 6, 8 months that is actually evolving me to say, oh yeah, we've got a bigger problem now than ever. So my specific answers are coming soon to a theater near you, Representative Pinto, because this has got to be something that we're going to be working on a lot this year.
Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chair Baker. Well, Chair Baker, a vote on this bill is coming a lot sooner than that, right? It's coming in the next few minutes. And you are asking the members of this committee, Mr. Chair, to decide whether or not you complain that there's about one size fits all being the biggest problem here, and your proposal is to take the program exactly as is and just make people wait another year for it. And there's no plan to do anything with that. And I want to ask, Mr. Chair, I know that a fiscal note was requested for this. My understanding has not arrived yet. Or maybe just I see you nodding, so there is no fiscal note. My understanding is that this will come out of multiple budgets. Maybe I'll ask this at this point, Mr. Chair. 2 years ago, the minority lead on the Jobs Committee made a request of the chair, expressed a concern that the paid family leave bill was being voted out of committee without a fiscal note. And that chair said that the bill would come back to the committee when a fiscal note was available. And the bill, because the bill was going to go to multiple other committees. I'll note, by the way, this bill passed through committees in 2019 and in 2021. It passed off the floor, and then in 2023 through a variety of committees. Mr. Chair, so the minority lead of that committee 2 years ago is now the chair of this committee. And will you make the same commitment to the minority lead now that was made to you 2 years ago, and it was fulfilled 2 years ago, that bill came back, that when a fiscal note is available, we will be able to be fully informed. Perhaps at that point, you'll have come up with the plan that you referenced, and also that there be a fiscal note available so we'll understand the budgetary impact that is our responsibility as members of this committee.
Representative Baker.
And to that, Mr. Chair and Representative Pino, you have my commitment to that, because I told them about this bill. They've had it actually in their possession for a number of weeks, even before we, again, became official. At that point, the deputy commissioner told me this should be a very straightforward, easy bill to do a fiscal analysis on. If you want, we can ask fiscal nonpartisan that question, because that was a comment that was made in my office along with other members like that to kind of say, what do we need? If we need a fiscal on this, they've had it. I think the fiscal note is requested, but they said it's going to be very simple. That's also one of the reasons, Representative Pino, that we agreed with you to say it's on its way to Ways. It'll have the fiscal note by that point.
Representative Pino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chair Baker. And I understand that then at that point, it'll be sent back to this committee, is what I heard you say, so that and as has happened 2 years ago, I'm sorry, I actually think I was wrong. I think at the time you asked that the bill be laid over until a fiscal note was available. The bill was going to go to other committees with subject matter jurisdiction, and so that's how that worked, but it did end up coming back. So my understanding from you now is, once that fiscal note is available, this committee will get a chance to have the bill come back. We'll be able to review the bill at that point and make an informed decision with the fiscal note.
Representative Baker.
Representative Pino, that was not what I said.
Okay.
I did not say that. I want to make sure I'm clear. It's going to Ways and Means. It'll have a fiscal note at that point. And at that point, I'm assuming it's going to go to the House floor. So that's what my assumption the bill is, if I understand that.
Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Chair Baker, so 2 years ago, you made that request. And what happened is that the bill, you asked it to be laid over. The bill went to workforce development, to judiciary, to children and families, to labor, to state government, human services, finance, commerce. And then it came back to workforce development, actually went to taxes, but went to workforce development, per your statement that the committee needed to have a fiscal note in its possession before voting the bill out. Mr. Chair, my understanding is, and maybe I'll ask this, is it still your intent to have the bill not be reviewed by committees such as Commerce, Judiciary, and Taxes that are fully within the scope of this bill?
Representative Baker.
Mr. Chair, I will take the lead on from the chairs of those committees. So far, they have not requested this. They know that it's coming. It had a lot of robust conversations the last 2 years. And the difference between this bill of a one-year delay versus standing up a huge fiscal new bill that we saw that had actuarial studies added, and the old modeling of a micro simulator model was changed to 7-day waiting periods, changing midway through it, new authors coming. A fiscal note at that point is nothing compared to this right now. This is not even sure there is going to be much of a fiscal impact on this by a delay. The deed has told us it's going to be a very straightforward, easy fiscal note. I expect that soon. This, in comparison, Representative Pino, is nothing like it was in 23 or 24 to a fiscal impact on all these other committees. So my plan is to get it to Ways and Means, and if other chairs want to hear it, they can certainly have that right to do that.
Representative Pindell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Chair Baker. Well, Mr. Chair, I think in your role as chair, you're going to want to hear bills that have a fiscal impact on this committee. And if there's some level below which you say, hey, no problem, other folks can deal with it, they'll figure that out. What you're doing with this bill is you're taking that program and you're shifting 1 year. It is going to have an impact. And again, you got a commitment to have the bill come back, to have you be able to vote as a member of this committee to be able to make a decision. And we're being asked now to do so, and not only without a fiscal note, but also on behalf of everybody else, because the bill that was heard in all those other committees is not going to be heard, here. I think I will. So I think I'll note this, Mr. Chair and Chair Baker, you talked about there being the need for other conversations, and you referenced that. I continue to be confused about the idea that there are sort of other ideas relating to paid leave, when what this bill does is in fact a one-size-fits-all solution of taking paid leave, shifting it 365 days with a plan possibly coming later, concepts of a plan, I think we can call it, coming later on. Mr. Chair, I will tell you that in my view, this bill takes us backwards, as Representative Frazier had referenced, in terms of doing that. We have, this committee is about to take a vote with no understanding of the fiscal impact of this bill. There'll be no review by the subject matter experts besides us in any of the other committees. All those other committees this bill, the paid family leave, passed through. We're not going to have any of that impact at all. And no groundwork laid. There's no justification shown. Nothing concrete at all that would possibly match the comments that we heard. And Mr. Chair, you are a serious person and you have sincere concerns with paid leave, and I know that you do. But I will say that overall with all this is that the message that is sent, at least that I receive, is one of unseriousness and insincerity in terms of at least the bill. And again, not about you personally, but in terms of that message from the situation that we are in. I will say to folks concerned about paid leave, there is not a 68th vote for this to have it pass off the House floor. This will not become law. It will not happen. It will not be delayed. Minnesotans are desperate. We all heard the testimony. There may well be work that we can do. Representative Frazier referenced it, and you referenced, Mr. Chair, and I look forward to those conversations. I think that voting a bill out of this committee in these circumstances moves us backwards from that, and that, to my mind, is very unfortunate. So, Mr. Chair and Chair Meckland will have a series of motions that we're going to make, and when we eventually get to it, I'll be urging members to vote no. And Mr. Chair, then I think that the first motion is going to come from Representative Frazier. In fact, he has to do all the motions because I'm not a voting member.
Representative Frazier.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move to refer the bill to Commerce. Representative Pinto mentioned some of this, but this bill, actually that exemption process that I spoke about earlier is to the Commerce Department. I'd like to move to refer the bill there because I believe it needs to be heard to determine what the impact will be. So I move to refer this bill to Commerce.
To that motion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Nay. The motion does not prevail. Representative Frazier again? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to refer this bill to judiciary. The appeals process, if there's any harm done in this bill by employers, or there's any fraud by employees, or misrepresentation is handled through courts, I would like to refer this bill to judiciary so they can determine what the impact will be there.
Okay, Representative Frazier, so to that motion, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?
No.
No. That motion does not prevail. Okay. Representative Frazier, is your mic off?
Now it is.
Okay.
There you go. I'd like to refer this bill, lastly, I'd like to refer this bill to taxes. Obviously, the premiums are being paid through a payroll tax. We would like to see what the impact is there. We believe that the members on that committee and the chair should have a conversation and debate in that committee to see how this will impact this legislation.
Representative Baker, do you have something to add?
I just want to add something, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Frazier, for this questioning. I want to let the committee know that I've had a chance to kind of review some of these things with our chairs currently. Again, I think the chairs also have the right to pull this out. Nobody has shared that with me if they want to see it in their hearing in their committee. So again, I just want to reinforce that our chairs have the ability to do that, and at this point, no one has requested that at this point.
Thank you, Representative Baker. So to Representative Frazier's motion, to all those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
No. The motion does not prevail.
Actually, maybe I'll, if I can, Mr. Chair. Yeah.
Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Chair, and Representative Frazier will be the one to have to make the formal motion, but I just wanted to kind of lay the groundwork for it. I had described the desire to have the bill come back, had, I think, impliedly requested in that it be, that the chair choose to lay the bill on the table. I think I kind of understand from our back and forth that's not going to happen. And so I'll be asking Representative Frazier in just a second to move to lay the bill on the table for all the reasons given. This is not a bill that is ready for us to take a vote. It is extremely not ready. We don't know the cost. It's not being sent to the right places, but ultimately we need to understand the details of the bill. And so I would ask that that be the case, and I believe Representative Frazier will be requesting a roll call as well. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Representative Frazier.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to lay this bill on the table, and I will request a roll call.
Mr. Chair, I just want to, again, make a comment if I could before we take the roll.
Representative Baker.
Thank you very much. I think, again, part of the reason you are, I'm an optimist, and doesn't sound like you are about this idea. I have a few months left with colleagues that I have worked with really, really hard on issues like this and even harder. I am convinced that I can find a member or two or three that might see it in their districts, that might say they have been listening to businesses a little bit too, that we can find common ground. And maybe we won't have to delay it, but maybe we will, because we've got to get it right. I'm optimistic that I will try to work with another member on the other side of the aisle to maybe be able to find that 68th vote. I just want to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Baker. So to Representative Frazier's motion to table the bill, roll call has been called, and we'll take the roll call.
Chair Baker?
No.
Vice Chair Meckland?
No.
Representative Bakeberg?
No.
Representative Berg?
Yes.
Representative Frazier?
Yes.
Representative Greenman?
Yes.
Representative Hussein?
Yes.
Representative Pete Johnson?
Yes.
Representative Wayne Johnson?
No.
Representative Kozlowski?
Yes.
Representative Mueller?
Mueller votes no.
Representative Schultz?
No.
Representative Zeleznikar?
No.
With 6 for the motion and 7 against, it does not prevail. So back to Representative Baker's, would you like to repeat your motion?
I would, if it's all right, if we're at the right time. Members, again, I really appreciate today's conversation. This went into important times that we need to spend on this issue, and I know this is not the last time we're going to talk about this. We heard a lot of great testimony today from both sides, and I hope we respect the process of what this is. You know, I could go on to different things here, but members, I just want to re-up my motion to please allow House File 11 to pass out of the committee on to Ways and Means. That is my motion.
Thank you, Representative Baker. So to that motion, all those in favor?
I'd like a roll call on this.
Representative Frazier has requested a roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And we'll now take the roll call.
Chair Baker?
Aye.
Vice Chair Meckland?
Aye.
Representative Bakeberg?
Aye.
Representative Berg?
No.
Representative Frazier?
No.
Representative Greenberg?
Greenman, no.
Oh, sorry. Representative Hussein?
No.
Representative Pete Johnson?
No.
Representative Wayne Johnson?
Yes.
Representative Kozlowski?
No.
Representative Mueller?
Mueller votes yes.
Representative Schultz?
Aye.
And Representative Zeleznikar?
Aye.
Representative Baker, with 7 ayes and 6 nays, your motion is prevails. And And it's on the way to Ways and Means.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members.
Members, with that, we are adjourned.